All right. One thing we're going to see under the Takujawa is what is called the Great Peace. Everything. Um, you get all of the entities working together. It's not always smooth, but all the entities work together. Um, you've got several different territories called domains. Um, it said they were led by over 250 individual daimyo and everything. And to get that many folks working together for 300 years and you can say you've got a great peace, something's working right. Uh, and part of that, it comes from uh, the seeds of capitalism coming in there. Also, you're going to have the samurai. The samurai have been the protectors of Japan for a long time. Um, Now the samurai are going by the way. They're not a warrior class so much. They are still symbolic of what used to be their status, but they also help to enforce that peace. We talked about capitalism, where that, uh, and when folks have got money, when you've got products, you have manufacturing in places like Edo, Kyoto, or Osaka. All of this helps for an increased standard of living. When folks' standard of living increases, then folks live a lot happier lives. As far as commercial expansion, you're going to have that taking place in the major cities where you've got the merchants, the artisans. Uh, Banking is going to be prevalent. Uh, they actually have paper money. They're not having to deal in precious metals. Uh, you're going to see a new commodity come in, and that is cotton. Cotton had been way too expensive up to this point, but um, because of technological advances, cotton is now available to the general public. Uh, by the 18th century, it said cotton had replaced hemp as a cloth of choice for most Chinese. Pardon me, Japanese. I got Chinese on the brain. I apologize. Uh, you got the expansion of trade. You're going to see infrastructure increase. They have more roads, more bridges. Takujawa actually mandated this. Uh, the main road, called the East Coastal Highway, or the Takeda, connected the imperial city of Kyoto with the administrative capital there in Edo. Now, just like everybody else, just like everybody else, you're fixing to see taxes go out the roof and everything. The book says that taxes were often 50% of the annual harvest. 50% of the annual harvest. That is a lot. That is a lot. You had peasant revolts because of that. It said during the Takujawa era, there was over 7,000 different revolts because of the high taxes. Uh, when you look at uh, everyday life for the individual Japanese, a lot of it's centered around the nuclear family, the IE. Uh, Folks had very few rights. Um, there was no passing along of property because the peasants didn't own any land. There was nothing to pass down. Uh, when you look at um, whenever the father passed on, died, the land was passed on to the eldest son. Now, the younger sons did get property, but not to the extent that the eldest son got. Women's rights. You will see me laugh a lot of times about that because that is not something that takes place very often. Doesn't take place very often. That women's rights did not exist. They only existed whenever they were given to them by a man. Women were expected to obey their husbands according to Confucian teachings. Men could take on concubines. They could have homosexual partners. But women prior to marriage were expected to be chaste in that. Women were not educated for the most part. Some of the women did get an education. Some became notable poets, painters. They were the victims of arranged marriages. The new wife did move in with the husband. If she did not meet his expectations, though, they thought nothing about putting her out. Thought nothing about putting her out. The only thing women were valued as was as childbearers and homemakers. The lowest form of life in Japanese culture was called a eta. The eta. This was the Japanese outcast. They had nothing. They owned no property. They had no skills. They were the ones that were the lowest of the low. When we look at the art and literature of this era, you have kabuki dance and theater, which took over the place there. The early kabuki was actually performed by prostitutes, and shogunate officials, not wanting that, prohibited women from appearing in these kabuki dances. So now you're going to have male actors playing female characters in their theater. So, big twist of events there. The last group that we're going to look at in this chapter is going to be Korea and Vietnam. Korea and Vietnam. With Korea, they had a dynasty in place, the Chosun, Choson. It followed what they had witnessed with the Chinese. It was founded by the military commander Yi Song-ji in the late 14th century. Had a capital city there in Seoul, there on the Han River. And Korea, to keep China off their back, paid what was called tribute. They actually gave China money to leave them alone. So you have that. and by the same token, Korea took on a lot of Chinese features as far as their institutions and their values. Uh, their differences was um, they had different areas. They had peasantry. You had a slave class, and yes, I want you to understand this, and I'm going to say this several times throughout this course, and some of you are going to get aggravated. The United States was not the only place that ever had slaves. Let me go ahead and say that. You're going to see slavery throughout history. And slavery was not restricted to the United States to white people owning black people. You're going to see white people owning white people, black people owning black people, brown people owning. Everybody, at some time or another, if you look back throughout history, you're going to see slavery in every bit of history. So when we talk about it, but one thing you will never hear me say is slavery was ever right. You will never hear me say that. I don't believe that. But slavery was in every society. It is here in Korea. And the position of a slave was classified as beneath the dignity of other groups. The Chosun dynasty had challenges from its neighbors. Manchu tried to come in. They did not succeed. Japan attempted to invade and take over Korea without success. And then when Hideyoshi tried to offer an alliance with the Korean king, Hideyoshi, when he got turned down and attempted to invade Korea. That's why you see, even to this day, there is no love lost between Koreans and Japanese. The Japanese under Hideyoshi invade all the way down to the capital there in Seoul. They will be repelled. And in the 1630s, the Manchus from China came across the border. And the Chosun dynasty promised to pledge allegiance to China to keep them from beating them up. You're not going to see a lot of the Christian missionary efforts there in China. What missionary efforts there actually are from folks that came from China, not Catholic missionaries coming to the country. Then when we look at Vietnam, or Tibet, Vietnam doesn't play a very big role in all of this. There was some commerce come in from the spice trade with it being there. And because there was not a whole lot of commercial intrusion from the Europeans, Vietnam did not lose a whole lot of territory to the colonial powers. To keep China from invading them, they assumed the name of Vietnam instead of Tibet. The capital is moved to Hawaii, and they too did not have a remarkable intrusion from the Europeans. That, folks, is chapter 17. Now, again, fixing to let you go. Upstairs is a computer lab. There are computer labs all around this campus. This quiz will end at 10:30. The quiz will close at 10:30. So I expect you to go do it. If you're an athlete, different sports have different computer labs that they have access to. Go see your coach, and they will be more than glad to get you into that lab. But be mindful of that. I should, barring any unforeseens, be with you face to face on Monday, the 10th. If everything goes right, that is my intention. But go and do this test, and then have a wonderful weekend. Study hard, do well, exceed your own expectations. And I will catch up with y'all next week.